Shalom, shalom. This week's Torah portion is Lech Lecha. It's the calling of Abram to go to the promised land. Lech Lecha is, I think in my native language, Afrikaans, we like to say, vat jou goed en trek verder. That's basically where it comes from. It's an absolutely fascinating Torah portion, and I want to encourage you to read it. And to read it by yourself. I'm going to talk about it for about 20 minutes. I'm not a teacher. I'm a student who's merely sharing what I have learned. And actually what I want to talk about in this 20 odd minutes is about the early life of Abraham that's not recorded in the Bible. You'll find it in some of the apocalyptic books, the book of Jasher specifically, and others. So this is the third portion out of 54 Torah portions in the year. And the Torah portion is fascinating. It starts with Abram's calling. It covers about 24 years of his life. It starts with his calling from Haran. And because last week he ended up in Haran with Terah, his father, and then going to Shechem, going on to Egypt, where Sarah was wooed by Pharaoh. They returned to Shechem. The land was, or between Abram and Lot, their possessions were so much that there was not enough grazing for all their flocks, so they divided lands. Lot went to the plains of the 5 cities, which in his day must have been lush, because the Bible tells us that was the better of the land to get. Today it is, of course, the Negev desert, and it changed from being a lush land to Negev desert when God punished Sodom and Gomorrah. But in this passage, Sodom is not so bad yet. There's I guess, World War Zero. Kings from the north came, they conquered a few other kings, and they conquered the 5 cities on the plain. And amongst other things, they abducted Lot and his family and all his possessions. And somebody escaped there and came to Abram, and Abram pursued this mighty army of 4 kings that captured Lot, and he pursued them with 318 men, but he managed to overtake them, to defeat them, to liberate all the captives, and to recover all the stolen goods, all the loot. And then immediately thereafter, he meets Melchizedek, and Melchizedek blesses him with the first ever recorded communion meal of bread and wine. And so absolutely fascinating. I want to encourage you to read Lech Lecha for yourself. I'm going to talk about Abram's early life, as I said. His early life is not recorded in the Bible. In his days when he was born, Nimrod ruled the land. He built the Tower of Babel, and he dominated absolutely everything, life and the whole known world. So I don't know, I confuse people's languages to help them to spread out. Let's go to Abram's father. His father, Terah, was a manufacturer and a trader in idols. They lived in the city of Ur of the Chaldeans. And Abraham's name was still Abraham then. He was born in the year 1948 on the Hillel calendar, not Anno Mundi. In the Anno Mundi calendar it was 2016. But 1948 on the Hillel's calendar is a very meaningful date, because in the Gregorian calendar in 1948 is when the modern state of Israel came about. So there is some prophetic value in knowing this date. Now, on the night that Abram was born in Terah's house, there was also a slave girl who gave birth to a baby boy. So 2 births in Terah's household that night. In the meantime, Nimrod's sorceress warned him that a baby born in Terah's house will rise up to ultimately defeat him. Just like Pharaoh in Egypt and Herod years later in Jerusalem, Nimrod's solution was to murder the baby. He wanted to murder just the one baby. We know Pharaoh wanted to murder all the Israelite babies, and Herod wanted to murder all the babies in Bethlehem because he didn't want Yeshua, the Messiah, to upset his rule. Now, so Nimrod was warned, and he went with a military guard to Terah's house, came looking for baby Abram, but Terah was up to his tricks, and he gave the baby of the slave woman to Nimrod, and Nimrod murdered the baby by choking it to death with his bare hands. So in the wake of this, Terah knew that baby Abraham could not, it's not safe for him to remain in Ur. So Abraham's mother first hid him in a cave, and later on they sent him to Shem, to be raised in Shem's household. Now Shem, Noah's son, was still alive. Noah himself died about 10 years before Abraham was born, but Shem was still alive. So Abram were raised by Shem, and from Shem he must have heard firsthand the account of the flood, or life before the flood, and what happened thereafter. And I believe, it's not written, but I believe that this experience with Shem is what formed the faith in Adonai Eloheinu in Abram. And that cemented it, or it formed his faith and cemented it. Then years later, in different sources say either Abram was 13 or 15, like just bar mitzvah, but one source said even 58 years old. I don't know which one is correct, but at that age, Abram returned to Ur to look after his father Terah's business, because Terah went on a business trip. So Abram, as the believer in the one true God, would not stand for the idols that his father manufactured. While Terah was gone, Abram took a stick and he smashed all the idols except for the biggest one in the shop. And he put the stick in the hands of the biggest idol. And when Terah came back, he was livid. So Abram destroyed his business. And Abram said, no, it wasn't me. I brought food to the idols, and they were fighting over the food, and this big idol grabbed a stick and he smashed all the other idols. And Terah said to Abram, you know, don't tell stories to me, because these idols are not alive. And to which Abram answered, that your own words testify against you, Father, because you know that these statues are not alive, yet you manufacture and sell them as gods to people who know no better. Anyway, that caused quite a stir in the community of Ur, and rumor of it reached Nimrod's ears, and Nimrod called Terah and his sons to come and see him about this event. Now, with Terah, he had 3 sons. Abram, of course, went with him. Haran, his other son, also went along, and Nahor was the 3rd son. We don't know too much from the Bible and from other scriptures about Nahor. We read about him in Genesis 22, verse 20 to 24, and again in Joshua 24, verse 2. But apart from that, we don't know. But the indications are that he wasn't present in Nimrod's court. Now, Nimrod demanded that they all forsake belief in Adonai, the one true God, and that they would accept the many idols as that he prayed to, his demon gods, as God. And Abram refused to do that. Terah, I think, as an idol manufacturer, he wasn't so much on the spot, but Abram refused. And Nimrod asked Haran, Abram's brother, he says, where do you stand? And Haran said, oh, well, I'm reserving my judgment for now. So Nimrod instructed his people to heat up a furnace and throw Abram into the furnace to be burned to death. Abram went into the furnace, into the flames, but he wasn't hurt. And you can see this accounts very similar to what happened to Daniel's three friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when they were thrown into the fiery furnace. Abram came out of the furnace unscathed. And when Haran, his brother, saw this, he said, me too, I also believe in the one true God, in Adonai. And Nimrod said, okay, into the furnace you go as well. But because Haran did not believe unconditionally like Abram did, he was burnt to death. And because of this event, Abram had to adopt Haran's son, Lot, his nephew Lot, who we know made it with him into the promised land, but that's why Lot had to be adopted by Abram. After these events, it was quite clear to Terah and to Abram that Ur was not a good place for them to live. And when God called them, they departed. They went to the promised land, but they only went as far as the city that the deceased brother Haran founded, and they stayed in Haran for 2 years until Terah died, Abram's father. So then this week's Torah portion opens there, where Abram is called Lech Lecha, go pick up your things and go to the land that was promised to him. I hope this is a short background, but that it will stimulate you to read the passage of scriptures. The scriptures for this portion is, I'm just scrolling there to show, is Lech Lecha is in Genesis 12 verse 1 up to Genesis 17 verse 27, and with it an associated portion from the prophets. It is Isaiah 40 verse 27 up to chapter 41 verse 16, and the gospel portion associated with it is from the Gospel of John chapter 8 verse 51 to 58. And that is very fascinating as well. If you read it, you should actually start reading much sooner. The events happen on the 8th day after Sukkot. The day before was the 7th day of Sukkot, and then it's the 8th day. On the 7th day, Yeshua called out in a loud voice that he is the water of life, and anybody who's thirsty can come to him and drink for free. And then he retired to the Mount of Olives to spend the night, and in the morning early he went back to the temple. As soon as he entered the temple, the Torah scholars and the Pharisees brought the woman who was caught in adultery to him and to judge her. Now, of course, they brought only the woman, and it normally takes two to tangle. To tango as well, I guess, but to tango. And the idea was not really justice. They just wanted to catch Yeshua out. And he was up to it. He bent and he wrote in the dust. The Bible doesn't tell us what he wrote in the dust, but there's a thinking that what he wrote was the 10 words, which is that we know as the 10 commandments. What he de facto were telling them is that he knows the 10 commandments so well and the Torah so well because he wrote it with his finger in stone. And with the whole Torah, he is the one who dictated it to Moses. And then when he said, well, the one who's without sin, let him cast the first stone. And they all slinked away because they weren't without sin. And then he turned to the woman. Now remember, it's the 8th day. The gematria of 8 means a new beginning. The 8th day is the start of the new week. It is a new beginning. He turned to the woman. He said, go and sin no more, because this is a new beginning for you too. And then he enters into a very fiery debate with the Pharisees. He calls them the spawn of the devil. And they are very angry about that. They react in kind to him. And so it's fascinating when you come to verse 51 and 58. Please read that. I'm sure you will enjoy. Okay, that is me for now. Shalom, shalom.